How's it going, guys? Alex here. Welcome back to another Dokkan battle video. And today I'm joined by Mr. DFree.
Hey man, it's been a long time. I'm ready to talk some Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle.
It's been such a long time. We legit did this like almost a year ago, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this list changed up. If you haven't seen the initial video, I will try my very best to have them linked in the description because I never do. And it honestly has changed so much. Obviously, we have made the list prior to this. And one thing about agility in particular, I mentioned this on Twitter, just they haven't had like necessarily that much support. It kind of is the same units for the most part. I mean, you take a look at the other types and they're getting like so many more units added. You have physical, he was easily one of the best types in the game right now. But agility, the last Dokkan Fest was Super 17, which was months ago. They have dropped a few LRs here and there. Obviously, LR Goten and Trunks. Majin Vegeta, even the new Tien and Chaozu from the World Tournaments, but aside from that, we haven't exactly seen too much. But then you have these N-type category leads like Super Saiyan 3 Bardock and Golden Frieza. That's two N-types already, so I'm curious to see when they drop the next agility type. But of course, the way that these videos are going to work, well, this one in particular, and probably the other ones as well, we're going to talk about the top 5 best agility type units, and then at the end, in a separate bit, I'm going to have the top 5 agility types, or top 5 super agility types, and top 5 extreme agility types that me and Donnie put together. But to get things started, in the last slot, of course, it's going to be none other than your boy Vegeta. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, wait, why? And
it's not even a bad slot to be in. He's number 5 among every single AGL card in the game. This is like, no matter where any of these units place, it's an honor to be there.
Exactly. Just because you're in like number 1, it doesn't mean that you are bad. And it goes back to, remember when we made me and Zen made that video about cooler, I think it was cooler Super Saiyan 3 Goku and the other Super Saiyan 4s, the two, Goku and Vegeta.
At that time, you know, people couldn't grasp that Cooler could be better than Vegeta. And it was like, well, it doesn't actually matter, really. They're all like the best units in the game.
Yeah, exactly. They are still the top 4 units in the game.
They all still one-shot everything. It doesn't matter. So
exactly. It doesn't particularly matter that much. So Vegeta in the last slot, and I feel like one of the main reasons is just simply that his leader skill is kind of outdated. And obviously
and sorry to cut you off. Well, that and
cool.
I think the biggest reason is that he's dropped a new updated card on him. Like,
yeah, exactly.
They literally dropped a new Vegito that's literally this AGL Vegito power crept, right? So he's still an incredible unit, but I feel like part of that is due to the fact that AGL, as we talked about, hasn't had any sort of big units come out or anything like that. Like, I think AGL is the only type without a category leader at this point too.
Yeah, you're completely correct.
Yeah, so there's stuff like that that's happening. So I think that's part of it too, but it can't be understated that, you know, this man's ability to mitigate damage, which is one thing that he does better than the physical variant, is one of the things that's just the best about him and keeps him as one of the best normal attack tanks in the game. So he deserves to be here for sure.
And we can easily say that he is still like the closest thing to being a perfect unit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the big things that was talked about with him. It's like, yo, he can do everything, literally.
Yeah,
he can carry your team and he can, you know, handle it defensively. And he was one of the closest units. In fact, I still think he's one of the closest units to being considered quote unquote perfect in this game. A lot of units kind of swing one way or the other where like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to be like an insane high damage output unit and possibly take some hits when I get higher in the potential system. Like Vegito Blue, for example, physical Vegito Blue at this point. He's like the perfect epitome of that. Like, he is a really high damaging unit if he rolls off multiple super attacks, but you need to give him orbs to really make him be able to tank well. So
yeah, exactly. And it was one thing that we always said when it comes to Vegito Blue, who's just always a product of the potential system. To get him to be at his best, you obviously need him to give him those orbs. But it's not so much of an issue now, just because of how insane the boosts they get from like certain leads.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you have like the Hyper Saiyan team. Well, doesn't Gohan give like a 170% boost to defense?
To defense and HP, yeah, and 130 attack.
Which is ridiculous. 340% overall to defense, and it obviously tends to vary for every single category in the game. But again, you can't overlook Super Vegeta. Just because he is in that number 5 spot doesn't necessarily mean that he is bad by any means.
Exactly, and whenever we talk about the super units in this, the thing is that number 5 and number 4 are really interchangeable. Like, that is probably the closest that they could be in here. And we're going to get into number 4 in a second, but I think that really there was a legitimate claim to fame for Vegito being better than our number 4. And for number 3, he's also going to be highly, like, you know, subjective, because a lot of people are going to look at him differently depending on, like, you know, whether or not they have him already with orbs and stuff like that. So it can swing multiple ways. Vegito could potentially be number 5. He can all the way go. He can go all the way up to number 3 too. So just keep that in mind.
It's extremely subjective. So of course we briefly brought him up, and we have Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, and one of the main reasons why, again, I think I'm cutting off here.
No, you're good.
One of the main reasons why is, of course, because of that leader skill. But one thing that I wanted to debate slightly was Vegeta. You could argue that Vegeta is in the better categories because obviously he is in the Potara category. But then you have Majin Buu Saga as well, but you can't necessarily run him in that particular category unless you run the SDR Vegeta, which obviously isn't a good thing to run. So despite being in that category, and you can definitely debate that the Majin Buu Saga team is better than the Shadow Dragon Saga, you can't use him in the end, obviously, because you have the physical one. But then you do have the Potara category, which is a pretty damn good category, and we could potentially even be seeing that improve over time if Kefla gets an awakening. But overall, I mean, there isn't that much of a difference between Super Vegeta and obviously Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, apart from the fact that Vegeta can obviously counter. And I think you mentioned this off camera, Vegeta's tanking is simply better because he has that mitigation instead of just a defensive boost. And the thing about the events is that they can greatly lower the defense of units like Vegeta, which can easily reduce their defense to like 20k, right?
Yep. So what happens is, and it's always been the case of this game, but more so with JP's endgame content, where it's like, okay, Super Battle Road is a thing. Of course, that's not the meta of this game, but if you were to take on something like that, Vegito outright, because of his ability to reduce incoming damage, and units like that can reduce incoming damage are just outright better defensive units than the ones that rely on getting high defenses, a la LR Piccolo, something like Vegeta SS4. Like the units that can get 100,000 defense, they literally take over 100,000 on super attacks. They literally take 20, 15, or like 20,000, 15,000, or 12,000 on a good day from normal attacks, while Vegeto's sitting there taking double, triple digits. So
yeah, exactly.
Defensively, the edge has always been in favor of Vegito, and it's not even close. The ability to do stuff like that is always going to be massive. And of course, if you're taking on like a boss rush, for example, SS4 Vegeta is going to take for double-digit damage. At that point, it doesn't really matter. But as this game progresses and moves on with more harder content, the mitigation will always be the better way to go. But really what happens is you have a really interesting trade-off between Vegito and Vegeta, because I really don't like the premise of the support unit on the team, which would be the Vegito, being better than the leader of the team if you're running Super AGL, which would be Vegeta, right? But really, it's highly possible, because you look at Vegito and you say, well, he can counter, right? And then there could be scenarios where he's getting 4 or 5 counters, and they're all hitting for 200 or 300 each, barring a critical hit. And then all of a sudden, he's wound up out-damaging SS4 Vegeta because of that. And maybe he gets an additional or his own super attack crit or something like that. And all the while, he's blocking all these hits and he's doing all this crazy damage back. He's buffing the allies with his super attack mechanic. And of course, Vegeta can counter too. He doesn't counter anywhere near as well as SS4 Gogeta, but I think he would need to counter that well to even be comparable defensively to Vegito. I just feel like Vegito has more of the intangibles to him.
And he's way more consistent, because that chance to counter is a 30% chance. And
exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, if it doesn't trigger, of course, Vegeta may not take a whole lot because of high defense in certain scenarios, but I'd rather, block and counter like 5 hits and get hit with 1 super attack.
Wait. I have solved all the problems. Use the scouter item. There you go.
Oh, yeah, the scouter item works.
The scouter
but you still need the RNG, man. You still need the RNG of saying, hey, I'm going to counter this. That's why I said, like, and this goes for Goku SS4 too. Whenever we get around to talking to him or about him, Gogeta raised the bar, right? Gogeta raised the bar by SS4 Gogeta by being able to counter at like a 70% clip. Yeah, so there's some confusion there. He says high chance, but apparently that was calculated by Mobile Man as being like a 70 or 75% chance to counter. He literally counters everything, every super attack. And he raised the bar.
Those are actually official files from the game. They actually release a ton of data regarding like the percentages and such.
Exactly.
Of how certain mechanics work.
I feel like you have to judge him in that way if he has a similar mechanic. But either way, like I said in the beginning, it doesn't actually matter. They're basically the same unit. They're literally the same unit.
And it's still both incredible. There isn't like that much of a difference between them. And if you were back, like when you were watching these videos, if you ever watched them before, we kind of did the same with and when it came to Super Saiyan Vegeta and Rage Trunks as well, there was just like so little between them. So we basically said 1A and 1B. Obviously, in this particular situation, Vegeta is slightly better, but there are certain scenarios where Super Vegeta could be better, but ultimately they are both incredible units.
Yeah, I think the biggest hindrance on Vegito is that the best team for him to be on, optimally, he can't even be on the team.
Yeah, exactly. And taking a look at the Batara category real quick, what does Kefla give? So she gives 2 key and a 120%. Yeah.
So that's his best team would be the Vegeta team. That's literally the best team for him to be on right now.
Okay, so this guy, this next guy, he used to be the king.
He came out of nowhere. He wasn't even on our list.
I honestly was not expecting like them to do him first, because they released Broly first, right? So I was like, well, you know, you're gonna go in order. Release, no. Agility Super Saiyan 3 Goku, the Agility King back, and you can't see it because they didn't update Dokkan Wiki, but he is now an absolute beast. If you can get him to level 140, he now gives the Super Vegeta leader skill, which is the free key and the 70% stats to agility types. Immense damage, greatly lowers defense. Is it 120% now?
120% attack for 7 turns, and he gets a 70% defensive improvement. Again, the super attack got upgraded from being supreme to being immense.
Hold on, did they knock
SA
up
level
his
15, by the way. Huh?
Did they knock up his 12 key multiplier?
I don't even know about that. That's a really good question. I don't think that they did. I hope that they didn't, because like I said, he goes up to 15 SA anyway.
He is just an absolutely incredible unit, and again, I will try to leave this list in the comment section, but if I'm not mistaken, he is the 6th hardest hitter in the game. So that's a massive jump, and I think someone actually left it in the comments of that particular subreddit
saying that
post.
He hasn't been on one of those since like the very first ones.
Yeah, since like 2016. That's almost a year. And now he legit just came out of nowhere. And he's here again. So it's nice to see him back. I definitely think that this should have kind of been what the potential system was from the start, but because they made the orbs limited, it's like, well, I obviously want to utilize the better units a bit more, right? But with something like this, it's like you always have the opportunity to Extreme Z awaken him, but then I know that a few people are going to argue like, well, what if you don't have the team to take on this event? But
yeah,
again,
and that's why I said it would be subjective, because here's the answer to this. If you cannot Extreme Z awaken this Goku, he probably doesn't make this list. If you don't have him Extreme Z Awaken, he doesn't make this list most likely. Because the card changes so drastically when he gets to max awakening. His leader skill changes, his super attack mechanic changes, his passive gets upgraded massively. 7-turn restriction is still there, but it never really mattered. I've always said 7 turns truly don't matter, because by that time, in most cases, you beat the event anywhere you're close to it. I don't think the link set changes, but the card itself, it's 15 SA level, he changes massively. He doesn't make the list aside from that. But again, there's a legitimate claim to saying Vegeta and Vegito are better, and you wouldn't even be wrong in saying that. But simply on the sheer statistical numbers of this Goku and how massive a leap he has made, that's why we put him at number 3, because I don't think he's warranted at being better than the next 2. But he is like the closest thing to an LR in this game that's not an LR at this point. He gets a 7,000 or so potential system improvement. So at 100%, this man's stats rival LR cards. That's
which is absolutely ridiculous.
And he goes to level 140 now.
And look, just look at how high those stats are. It's ridiculously high. And obviously you can't see it right now, but it's that. And that's another thing that you have to take into account. Like, stats are, like, they make a massive difference. If you take a look at a unit that has no potential system buffs, even the free buffs make a massive difference. They can easily add like 200 or 300k onto their attack, right?
And that's basically where all of these numbers get calculated for Mobile Man. He just uses the free buffs anyway. He doesn't say like, oh, at 100% this or that. Just orbs in general make a massive difference in this game because of the fact that they changed the overall statistic. And a lot of times units have a percentage increase on their base stat. So the higher the base stat, the higher that, or the more valuable that percentage increase is, which is where you get into the whole flat boost passive versus percentage-based passive, which most units can't really utilize a flat boost. I think the only one that really can at this point is Broly, but it is what it is. But still, incredible unit. Like, took me completely by storm, like how good he gets.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, you know, a while ago, I think when we did our previous list, there was a legitimate claim, and I said that same phrase like 3 times, that STR Goku is better. There was like, it was a serious debate. Like, Goku STR was probably the better unit because he didn't have the turn restriction, which I said isn't the biggest of deals, but you have to consider it. He only was 10-20% like weaker, and he had the exact same link set. And he, like, I still like lower defense too. So it's like, This guy got a lot better, and there's nothing
got
wrong I can say about him. But for the people
that
that disagree, you're not wrong to think that other people are better either. Because
exactly.
He's super subjective. He's probably the only unit on this entire list of this video and any other videos we do that is going to be like this, where it's like you have to make sure you got him to level 140. That's it.
And when future Extreme Awaken units obviously come out as well, like, it will eventually affect lists like this, but for now, obviously, that isn't so much of an issue. I'm actually curious to see how frequently they do units like this.
Well, and one thing to consider too with other Extreme Z Awakens is that doesn't automatically mean they'd pop into our top 5 lists either, because some other groups have like a lot of really good units, like physical. Like, I don't know what we would do with that list right now. There's so many good units.
There's just so much variety, right?
Exactly, and AGL has quietly not gotten updated as a typing in a while. So that's part of the reason too why, you know, I don't want to say Vegeta would be off this list, but if there was like 3 or 4 more better AGL units, then you're looking at a scenario where Vegito, previously touted as being the most perfect card in the game, best card in the game for a very long time, like that man had a stranglehold on this game. And Extreme Z Awaken Goku, who got updated, probably don't even make this list. So I don't know. But number 2 is not as bad. I mean, it's not as comparable to number 3 and 4 or 5. But I think number 1 has a stranglehold on AGL's typing.
Like, the man in number 2 is legit just the king of being shafted, right? Well,
yeah, and the thing about it is he got a massive boost. He's so fortunate to be a part of the Resurrected Warrior team, because 170% leader skill is insane. You guys know who we're talking about by now. We're talking about LR Majin Vegeta.
Majin Vegeta. And one thing that saved him by far is the fact that his 12 key super attack is the stronger one.
Yep, and that's one of the best things, because really, I think that he could have possibly been number 1 had he had a better link set. But his link set's always been really bad for him. Like, Over in a Flash is cool and all, but he needed something else because he wasn't super consistent with getting super attacks unless you ran the team a certain way with certain units and things like that. But since his 12 key attack is the Mega Colossal and the Explosion is the Colossal, you typically want to get to 15, 16, 17 key in that area anyway, so it's a little bit easier to manage that.
Yeah,
but
and
that's also a shaft too, because that means that his Mega Colossal can't get that 24 key
It just seems so useless, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's good for getting it early, but he can't get the 24 key multiplier, which would mean the attack would be stronger. He'd probably be like a top 3 hardest hitter in this game if he isn't already anyway.
Oh, no,
if he was able to do that.
Number 3.
He is number 3? Okay, well, he'd be the hardest hitter in the game, period, then.
It just seems so pointless. It's like when they made the card, they were like, oh, okay, so we know that it's going to be pretty hard to get to 18 keys. So let's just make the 12 key stronger anyway and make the 18 key irrelevant unless you want to do the world tournament or whatever.
Yeah, and he's the only LR in the game like that. That's worth noting.
It's just so pointless. Like, what is the point of having an 18 key super attack weaker than the 12 key? And that's the entire point of these legendary rares. That 18 key super attack is just supposed to be stronger. And there is, like you mentioned, there is no other LR in the game that does that.
Yep, no other LR. And I think, you know, the main draw to that is because of the key multiplier, being able to get the higher amount of keys stacking your attack higher. But he gets capped out at 17 key if you want to get the Mega Colossal attack. Otherwise, you have to swap for the 24 key and get the Colossal attack. So it's a pointless shaft, and it definitely holds him back from being number 1, that and the Link package. But that being said, he's still, as we just said, one of the hardest hitters in the game. Not very many negatives. He has multiple uses. He's able to be used in the World Tournament, albeit not as easily as something like LR Broly, but still can be used viably there. And again, one of the hardest hitters overall. Just incredible unit. Also, again, very fortunate to be a part of that category that, you know, has other units that he can link well with. Like, the Revive Warriors category right now has Bardock in there. It has SS3 Goku in there. Like, he has Over in a Flash buddies. So he's not in a position where he can't function well. And that's what happens to him on Extreme AGL. Like, Extreme AGL has a plethora of support units if you want to run them a certain way. But overall, that team is dominated by Android links and stuff like that. He's very lucky he has Rose, but if you run him on that team without like Rose or stuff like that, or other common supports like a Metal Rildo, he kind of just seems out of place. And that's why I don't really like him on that team. He still hits really hard, but he seems out of place because he has such a weird link set. So,
yeah, he does.
And he's one of the few units. Sorry, last little thing. He's one of the few units that I think Rebirth is actually a good thing for. Like, a lot of people talk bad about the Rebirth link because we've always talked bad about it, but it's quietly become a solid link for a lot of units that need the key. It's quietly become a very solid link.
I just think people tend to prefer the attack increase, obviously.
They will, and they always will. That's just the nature of the game. But for the units that have crappy links, extra 2 key link can be very good. And he's one of the units I think that, benefits from that. Similar to how LR Trunks, for example, he has shocking speed and prepared for battle. He doesn't need rebirth, right? But it's still an extra 2 key link that he could use.
Yeah, exactly. It would help. And I think you mentioned this as well, like, the fact that his 12 key is just the strongest one anyway doesn't necessarily, isn't that much of an issue, because it's kind of hard to get to anyway, especially without shattering the limit link. And I think the majority of the time when you are running Margin Vegeta, it's just better to run him as a lead anyway, despite it being kind of hard to find a friend.
Yep. Unless you have the Revived Warriors category, he's probably best as being a lead. And you just build, because with him as a lead, you can run any AGL unit you want, as opposed to sticking him on Extreme AGL, which I already said doesn't link super well with him.
Good luck finding a Super 17 friend.
Oh yeah, that's never gonna happen.
Bro, I actually thought I saw one the other day. It's like, wait, this can't be real. It's actually happening. And I think I'll briefly mention this. I don't think the friend system would be that much of an issue if you could use your friends unlimited amount of times, because you pretty much have most of the leads in the game. So if I was to be like, okay, can you set this guy as your lead? You'd be like, oh, okay, and then the same an hour later or whatever, can you switch to this guy? I don't think it would be an issue if it was like that, and especially because a ton of people play the game, but because you can only use that friend lead once, it's just well, I'm kind of limited in my options.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. Let's move on to number 1. Who's number 1?
We have LR Goten. Oh, wait, is that right? Yeah, LR Goten and Trunks. And again, I think you mentioned this earlier. One of the reasons that he's better is honestly just because he does hit harder, if I'm not mistaken. I'm actually just going to quickly double check. Hold on. No, wait, he doesn't actually hit harder. He's missing out by 50k. But even without that,
50k. Oh,
50k. So you have to take into account that he is consistently going to get the ultimate attack, and that mostly comes down to the fact that his passive just works in a way that gives him key consistently. As you can see here, you can get between 3 and 9 key, which basically gives him a massive increase in terms of key. He obviously has shattering limit as well, and shocking speed. He has the superior leader skill. Obviously, he does have that RNG super attack mechanic, but the majority of the time, you're obviously going to be getting the ultimate attack anyway, just because of how that ultimate attack works. And I spoke to multiple people, and they legit say that it's not an issue getting that 18 key consistently.
No, it's not. Yeah. At all. That passive is really good. Every time I've used this as a friend, I've always got that just about every single time. They are literally the most, I don't want to say the most self-sufficient LR in the game, because I still feel like Gohan getting that one extra key per orb is awesome, but they are a really, really close second, if not honestly, for the true number 1.
Yeah,
if you want to look at a unit that needs to get their Ultra Super off and can guarantee it, this is the one.
This guy, yeah. I'm trying to think. Obviously, Gohan with Rage Trunks, I mean, without that, that's one of the best partnerships in the game, right?
Basically, yeah. Gohan and Rage Trunks is one of the best pairings. So, of course, Gohan just has somebody he can leech off of anyway, so he's guaranteeing himself 20 or 24 key all the time.
I mean, I kind of want to say LR Blackens a Martian and obviously merge a Martian to transcend the Ultra Rare, but even then, it's just not as good as this.
Nah, it's not as good at all, because Trunks, again, creates those orbs. So even 3 or 4 orbs, intelligence type orbs for Gohan, is still, again, double that. So 3 or 4 orbs is 6 to 8 key, and then you're also getting 1 additional per ball.
Yeah,
so
it's ridiculous.
It's almost guaranteed to be there. But what makes this card really good is the fact that, again, they have that up to 9 number, 3 to 9. So they're guaranteed a minimum of 3 key. If they're on a team like AGL that has 2 shocking speed units, they're flat out in the middle of that. For example, if you run them as a leader, double Trunks leads, double Goten Trunks lead, that's 8 key to start with, before you factor in passive or links. In the middle between 2 units that have shocking speed, oh wait, they're already at max key. They're already at max 12 key. And then you factor in their passive that can go from 3 to 9. They either go within 4 or 5 key away from their Ultra Super to being from there to being already at the Ultra Super number.
And if you're running a support unit,
and if you have a support unit instead of a support unit that has shocking speed or something, it gets wild. These cards or Rebirth, because they actually have a lot of solid Rebirth AGL support units.
Yeah. So I'm actually reading this now. It says, chance and passive skill for each random key amount gained is evenly distributed between, it's a 1 in 7 chance. So basically, you have a 1 in 7 chance of getting between, gate 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 9 and 3. So you have an equal chance of getting any of those, and it's just, completely broken. And another thing you have to take into account, they have a farmable super attack.
Yeah, they do up to a point because of the Mighty Mask card. And they also start off with 120% at the, well, actually, that's what they super attack mechanic. So when they super attack, they get 120 as opposed to at the start of the turn. It's not the biggest of deals. And you kind of get a hindrance because they want you to guarantee. This card literally is a card that says, hey, I want to get my Ultra Super. Every LR wants that, but this one puts an onus on it because their 12 to 17 key literally weakens this card. You know, the skinny version lowers its own attack for 1 turn. The fat version lowers its own defense for 1 turn, so I guess if you would choose, you'd want the fat one. But it's a 50% chance between either of those two if you get 12 to 17 key. But if you get the 18 to 24 key, you're buffing your attack and defense, or you're buffing only your defense. So it's really a lot better. And of course, you're getting the Mega Colossal multiplier on there. They are literally the epitome of saying, I need 24 key. And they link really well. They have Z Fighters, which was updated as a 15% link. They have Prodigies, which is usable with multiple Vegeta-type units on that team. Shocking Speed is a staple for AGL. Rebirth, again, is a solid link on this team. And they have Legendary Power. And they also give 4 key, so you can run this guy and Majin Vegeta on the team viably and erase some of the issues that Majin Vegeta had, right? By not being able to link really well, because they're going to give him 2 key via the passive, and double these as leads is 8 key to start with for Majin Vegeta.
Wow, that's actually insane.
Yeah,
and
they're really good.
Another thing that's actually quite funny is because they're like, obviously the 12 and 17 key. It's like, well, if you get the skinny Gotenks, you lower your own attack. If you get the fat one, lower your own defense. It's like, yeah, you don't want to get this 12 key super attack. They're basically, yeah, you don't want to get that 12 key super attack.
So I can tell you that every time I've used a unit, I've rarely got them. Like, literally, if it happened, it was because I had a really poor orb setup.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it doesn't have the majority
really
of the time anyway.
With the passive, yeah. Especially if you're on that's something interesting to look forward to for Vegito Blue, LR Vegito Blue. He's going to have a very similar passive to that. Like, it's a little bit different because his is not like a random chance thing. It's more dependent on being lower on HP, so it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But he could wind up being an LR card that somehow just gives himself a crazy amount of key and is really self-sufficient, just like these guys.
So I'm just thinking here, what if they introduce something completely new for Vegito, like in terms of super attack mechanics?
That'd be wild, man. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, can you imagine if he just gets like something above Mega Colossal? Yo, that would actually be insane. And just to quickly touch on LR Vegito, he's a free unit, and for a free unit, he is absolutely incredible. So I'm just gonna go with that.
Yep, definitely incredible.
And we don't even have the LR yet, so I'm expecting... Like, why is that? Why do you think they are holding off on the LR?
I just think they haven't even finished it yet.
Really? They've had like 5 months, bro. 5 months.
I just think they're finalizing the card, really. Because really, I mean, we're looking at their data mine stuff. They haven't actually even officially announced the SSR version. So... Oh,
yeah, you're right. Yo,
I think that's why.
I'm actually having a look on DBZ space right now, and it says you need 30 of the Patara medals, but the question is, how do you get these Patara medals? Is it like LR Hercules?
Shop, I think.
It's
going to be like LR Hercules, it seems.
No.
Yeah.
So it's going to take you a month to awaken him?
That's what it sounds like.
No, are you kidding me? Oh yeah, so it took 5 months for you to, you know, actually release him. Now I'm going to have to wait another month to awaken him. That'd actually be terrible.
At least he's better than LR Hercule.
Yeah, that's true. LR Hercule was such a waste. Oh yeah, here you go. Spend 100k Zenny and don't even use him. Is it 100k? Yeah. No, it's more than that. It's like 100 million or whatever.
100 million, yeah.
It's 100, ridiculous amount. Yeah, pretty much gone over all the units, but I hope you guys did enjoy the video. As always, thank you DFree for joining me, and I almost knocked a cup over. Any last words?
No, that's it, man. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure, bro.
Right, so Tech Next, I don't know when we're doing that, probably sometime next week. But yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day as always. And of course, check out DFree in the description. And I will see you all in the next one.